Hey there, this is Hunter McDermott with AnyoneCanPlayGuitar.org, and this is Lesson 5 in Basic 12-Bar Blues slash Intro to Improvisation. Okay, so in this last lesson we're going to look at what I believe is sort of like the final layer of hopefully feeling pretty comfortable eventually with improvising using your pentatonic scale over your 12-bar blues form. We're sticking with the key of A because it's probably the easiest and one of the most common keys. And we're sticking with just this one pattern. Now there are other patterns where you can actually move around the neck a little bit more, but for now I think it's good to just kind of stay in one place as we're getting started here. Okay, but in lesson 3, in the very end of that lesson, I was doing a little bit of improvisation, and I ended up throwing in this extra note at one point, even though I said I wasn't going to. And that note is what we're going to talk about in this lesson, which is taking your pentatonic scale. Specifically, this is an A minor pentatonic. It starts on an A note. Their 5th fret of the 6th string would be your A note. And taking that A minor pentatonic scale and turning it into something called an A blues scale. So to demonstrate what a blues scale sounds like, here's the regular pentatonic followed by the blues scale. So we have pentatonic, followed by the blues scale. So you can hear, it's got a couple extra notes in it, and they really give this kind of nice bluesy tune to it. So it's sort of that mixture again of kind of happy and sad. Blended together, you get the blues. That's my definition of it anyway. Okay, so the blue note, as it is known, the note that changes the pentatonic into a blues scale, there's only one note. We're only adding one note to it. Now that note might appear in multiple places, but it's the same note over and over again. So that note that we want is known as a flat 5th. So to get your blues scale, what we're going to do is add a flat 5 to our minor pentatonic scale. Okay, so let's go back a couple steps here and let's look at what our A major scale was again. Because again, even though I keep saying A minor pentatonic, the key that we are in when we are playing the chords part of the blues is actually major. We're playing major chords. Alright, so like we did in, I believe it was lesson 1, we talked about the key of A and finding the notes of that key. So we have 3 sharps. They are F, C, and G. So my notes in an A scale would then be A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and back to A. Alright, cool. So those are the notes of my A major scale. So when I say I want to take this pentatonic scale and add a flat 5th to it, the note that we need to look at is the 5th note of the A scale. Excuse me. So we have A, B, C sharp, D, E. So our 5th note of our A scale is an E note. Alright, so all I gotta do is, there's my 5th, now I just gotta flat it. So what I would get instead of E is actually E flat. So we have this note, E flat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through my A minor pentatonic scale here, and I'm going to add the E flat notes that I come across. Alright, so let's go through them together here. We have A, and then we go up to a C. Again, this is back to lesson 1 of my music theory class. It's A sharp, B, and then C. So A, C, then I have a D, then my next note is an E. So in between those two notes, my D and my E, I have the 6th fret there. That's the E flat. So that note would be right here. So there's your first blue note. Alright, so we have E. Alright, and then we have this note here, which is G. And then our pattern of 5 different notes starts over again. We have A again, like we learned that in the last lesson for our lick there. That's where that one started, A. Then we have B. I'm sorry, C. We have a C. Then we have a D. And then we have E flat. right above that. So also like we learned in the very first music theory lesson is that D sharp and E flat are the same thing. So we have our E flat right here. And then followed by an E, and then we'd have G, and then A, and then C again. So those are the only two spots where we need to add our flat fifth, which happens to be an E flat. And now, instead of having an A minor pentatonic, what we have is an A blues scale. Very cool. So it goes from this to this. And we get this nice little segment where we have D, E flat, and E. There are three notes right in a row there, which gives us a nice little chromatic sense where we're using all these notes that are packed together right there. And we're kind of ignoring what key we're in to just throw in this note that creates this nice amount of tension, which is what blues is all about. Okay, so this is it. This will be the last step here. I'm going to try to mix together all the different things we talked about so far, which was, I'm not going to play the shuffle. I'm going to let the play-along track play along, and I'm going to play a combination of my A minor pentatonic scale and my A blues scale and those goofy licks that I came up with. So I'm going to try to play to the chord. I'm going to try to use pentatonic, and I'm going to try to give it a little bluesy edge by adding in those blue notes. And then, of course, you can use your own style to make it even more interesting, like you can do slides. You can do hammer-ons, pull-offs, and then you can do vibrato, which is where you're sort of bending the note a little bit. Get that sound, or you can bend it. You know, whatever. Again, play around with it. Don't feel intimidated by any of the stuff you hear. You know, I'm not a great player, but you know, if you hear a little cool little lick, it's probably pretty easy. What you want to do is just experiment with playing around with this scale to start with, and get pentatonic and get the blues version of it down, and just try mixing and matching, thinking about what you're playing and having fun with it. All right, so here we go. Last step. Whatever. So, you know, that's just me trying to combine all those things on the fly. You know, I had some moments there where I hit some really fantastic sounding licks, I thought, and then there were some moments where I definitely sounded like I didn't know where I was going to go next. And that's where I tried to throw in one of those licks. So, you know, it can be a very humbling experience trying to come up with a very convincing, confident sounding scale or solo all, you know, on the fly like that. But that's why you practice, which I need to do a little bit more of. So there you go. So as a summary of all we talked about, in Lesson 1 we looked at the 12-bar blues form, so that's 12 bars, 12 measures, and what order in which we go through chords. Those chords can be from any different key, so that's why we use those Roman numerals. 1, the Roman numeral for 1 tells you to play whatever the 1 chord is. So if I'm playing in the key of B, then that would be a B chord, because that's the first note of a B scale. Now if I'm playing, then it tells me to play the 4 and the 5. So what we end up with is the 3 major chords that appear in each key. A is a very common key for blues, so we went with that. And in the second lesson we talked about taking those chords and turning them into something a little bit more common. We hear that blues shuffle pattern, which is one of many different patterns that you hear, but is very prevalent. Then in the third lesson we looked at the A minor pentatonic scale, and so one more time, just to be clear, if we're playing an A major blues, which is the major chords from an A major scale, we don't want to play A major over it, we want to play A minor. Now there are certainly rules you can bend there, but as a way to enter into it and get a really great blues sound that you're probably looking for, A minor pentatonic to play over A major blues. Alright, so then in the fourth lesson, last lesson, we talked about how we can take all those random notes, which is fine, just playing randomly works, and start just thinking a little bit about playing to the chord a little bit more. Okay, how can I hit the root at the right time to make it sound like this fits together? And then also how to create licks. You know, you hear a neat thing that you happen to stumble upon, remember that. You know, play it a few more times, really commit it to memory, write it down if you have to, and revisit it. Make that part of your repertoire of licks that you can pull out whenever you need to, whenever you're playing a blues or want to add a bluesy element to a totally different style of music. That's another good thing about the blues. Anytime you want that bluesy sound, you throw in the blues scale. So that was this lesson. We talked about how we can take an A minor pentatonic scale and throw in the flat 5, which in this case was E flat. Now again, to find that flat 5, we went to not an A minor scale, we haven't even talked about minor scales, is we went to an A major scale. We found the 5th note, which was E, and then we flatted it, which gives us E flat. Then we went through our pattern and we threw in the 2 spots where we could conveniently hit an E flat note, and that changes the whole way the scale sounds. It now sounds bluesy, which is what we're looking for. So there you go. Now I hope that all the information, all the pertinent information that you need is in these videos. And if you need to go back and watch them again, or watch my first series of music theory basics, please do. But if you have any questions or any comments about the videos, please leave them for me. And if you're enjoying the videos, please subscribe, because I'll try to add more and more videos as I go along. And thanks a lot. This has been Hunter McDermott from anyonecanplayguitar.org, so thanks for watching.